My 5-year anniversary surprise was a ticket to Paris, but it only had his name on it. He thought I'd just cry, but I immediately started planning a very different kind of itinerary. The clinking of champagne glasses was the only sound that seemed to cut through the thick, romantic haze of the restaurant. 5 years. 5 years with Liam. I looked at him across the table, the candlelight dancing in his eyes, making them look like warm pools of honey. He was fidgeting with his napkin, a telltale sign he was nervous, but in that adorable, excited way he got before a surprise. For 5 years, he had been the sun my little world orbited. He was my steady hand in a crisis, my quiet comfort after a long day, the architect of my calm. And tonight, he was radiating a nervous energy that had my own heart thumping in a giddy rhythm against my ribs. "Stop looking at me like that," he chuckled, his smile reaching his eyes. "You're going to make me spill my big secret before dessert." I leaned forward, propping my chin on my hands. "Oh, I highly doubt that. You've been a vault for the past month. I tried everything. Pleading, poking, even trying to read your emails over your shoulder. Nothing." He laughed, a rich, warm sound that made the couple at the next table smile. "That's because this one is special. 5 years, Chloe. It had to be perfect." My mind was racing, a Rolodex of possibilities flipping at lightning speed. A puppy? No, our apartment was too small. A piece of jewelry? Maybe, but he'd been saving aggressively for months, far more than a necklace would cost. My gaze drifted past his shoulder to the vintage travel posters that adorned the restaurant walls. One of them was a stylized Art Deco print of the Eiffel Tower. My breath hitched. Paris. It was our place. The place we'd never been but had mapped out 100 times. We had a corkboard in our kitchen covered in pictures torn from magazines, charming Montmartre streets, the grandeur of the Louvre, a couple sharing a croissant by the Seine. We had a giant pickle jar labeled Paris Fund that we diligently fed with every spare dollar for the last 3 years. We'd watch Amélie on rainy Sundays and practice our terrible French accents on each other. Paris wasn't just a destination, it was our shared promise, the tangible symbol of the future we were building. Liam's hand slid across the table, his fingers enveloping mine. His palm was a little sweaty. "Remember our 3rd date?" he asked, his voice soft. "We went to that tiny independent cinema, and they were showing Breathless. And you spent the entire movie trying to look cool and sophisticated, but you had a giant piece of popcorn stuck to your sweater," I teased, squeezing his hand. "Hey, I was trying to impress you," he defended himself, grinning. "But you said something that night. You said one day we'd be the ones walking along the Seine, not just watching it on a screen. You said you wanted to see the city lights from the top of the Eiffel Tower with me." My heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. This was it. This was really it. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes, blurring the candlelight into a sparkling halo around his head. He saw them, and his expression softened into one of pure, unadulterated affection. He'd done it. The madman had actually done it. "I've held on to that," he continued, his thumb stroking the back of my hand. "I've held on to it every single day, every extra shift I picked up. Every time I said no to going out with the guys for a beer, it was for that, for us, for our promise." He released my hand and reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. Time seemed to slow down. The murmur of the restaurant faded into a low hum. My entire universe narrowed to the space between us, to the crisp, white envelope he was now holding. It was thick, official-looking, and my name wasn't on it, but it didn't matter. It was for us. He slid it across the polished wood of the table. "Happy anniversary, my love." My fingers trembled as I picked it up. It felt heavy, like it contained the weight of all our dreams. I looked up at him, my vision swimming with unshed tears of joy. "Liam, you didn't have to." "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I did. Open it." With shaking hands, I carefully tore open the seal. Inside was a single neatly folded sheet of paper, a flight confirmation. My eyes scanned it frantically, absorbing the details like a starving woman at a feast. Passenger: Liam Miller. Departure: JFK International Airport. Destination: Paris. Charles de Gaulle, CDG. Departure date: October 12th. Return date: October 19th. The dates were perfect. A week-long trip right over our anniversary. My smile was so wide it hurt my cheeks. I could already taste the champagne, feel the Parisian breeze on my face. It was real. He had made our dream a reality. I scanned the document again, looking for my name, expecting to see it right below his. Chloe Davis, passenger number 2, but it wasn't there. I read through the itinerary, the flight numbers, the seat assignment. Seat 24A, a window seat, just one. My smile began to falter, a creeping confusion chilling the warmth that had bloomed in my chest. Maybe my ticket was printed separately, a mistake? I unfolded the paper completely, smoothing it flat on the table, my eyes darting over every inch of the page. There was only one booking reference number, one passenger name, one ticket. Liam, my love. The architect of my calm had just handed me a beautiful gilded grenade, and I had pulled the pin with a smile. I looked up from the paper, my throat suddenly tight, the clinking of champagne glasses now sounding harsh and jarring. My voice was a small, confused whisper that barely made it across the table. Liam, there's only one ticket here. A flicker of something annoyance crossed his face before he smoothed it over with a patient smile. It was the smile he used when I couldn't figure out our new smart TV. A little patronizing, a little too gentle. Babe, of course there's only one ticket. This is the surprise. He leaned back, spreading his hands as if presenting a masterpiece. The gesture seemed hollow, theatrical. My heart, which had been soaring moments ago, was now plummeting, a stone in the pit of my stomach. I don't understand, I said, the words feeling like sandpaper in my throat. A surprise for you? He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. No, for us. Indirectly. Look, my company. They're expanding their European division. They've been looking for someone to send over for a big international conference, a meet and greet with potential partners. And I volunteered. I busted my ass, Chloe. I put in so much overtime, took on extra projects, made sure my name was at the top of that list, and I got it. They're sending me to Paris. The restaurant suddenly felt very cold. The romantic music filtering through the speakers sounded like a funeral dirge, a work trip. He was dressing up a work trip as our anniversary gift. So, this isn't a vacation? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. It's better, he insisted, his enthusiasm sounding forced now, desperate. They're paying for everything. The flight, a beautiful hotel right near the Louvre, a generous per diem for food and transport. It's the perfect opportunity. He leaned forward again, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if he was letting me in on a brilliant secret. Don't you see? This is how we finally do it. I'll be in meetings during the day, sure, but I'll have every evening free, all the weekends. You can use the money from our Paris fund, buy your own ticket, and come meet me. It'll basically be a free vacation for you. We'll have our Paris trip, and we'll still have half the money left in the jar for something else. It's genius. Genius. The word echoed in the sudden ringing silence in my head. He was looking at me with such expectant pride, like a child who had just presented his mother with a messy finger painting. And in that moment, the man I had loved for 5 years became a stranger. The shared dream, the pickle jar we fed with our hopes, the whispered promises in the dark. To him, it was just a fund, a pot of money for my ticket, not our ticket, mine. A ticket to join him on his adventure, to fit into the spaces his work schedule allowed. I was an accessory to his trip, not his partner. The we and us that had been the foundation of my world suddenly felt like a language only I had been speaking. "So you decided," I said, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion churning inside me. "You decided how we would spend our joint savings without asking me." His smile finally vanished. "Chloe, don't be like that. I'm trying to be smart, practical. This is a huge career opportunity for me, and it happens to coincide with our anniversary. It's perfect. I thought you'd be thrilled." "Thrilled?" The word came out as a choked laugh. "You thought I'd be thrilled that our dream trip, the one we planned together for years, has been downgraded to me tagging along on your business conference? That I should be excited to drain our savings to follow you to Paris and wander around by myself all day while you're in meetings? That's your idea of a perfect anniversary, Liam." "You're twisting my words," he said, his voice hardening. "I did this for us, to make it happen. I'm trying to be a good provider, to build a future." "Our future was in that jar, Liam," I whispered, pointing a trembling finger at the empty space on the table between us. "And you just spent it on yourself." He sighed, a heavy, exasperated sound, and started gathering the paperwork, as if closing the folder would close the conversation. "Fine, you know what? Forget it. You're clearly not in the mood to see the bigger picture." He was angry now, his jaw tight. He stuffed the flight confirmation back into the envelope, but a second, smaller sheet of paper fluttered out and landed on the table. It was a hotel reservation confirmation. My eyes snagged on it, a desperate, foolish part of me hoping to see something that would make this all make sense. Guest: Liam Miller, 1 adult. Hotel Inn Hotel d'Aubusson. Room type: Grand Lune, double room. Notes: romantic getaway package. Includes champagne on arrival and rose petal turn-down service. 1 adult in a romantic package for 2. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was like he had staged the perfect romantic getaway, but had forgotten to invite the other person. My gaze drifted lower, past the room details, to a small line of text at the bottom. It was information for his arrival. My blood ran cold. Primary conference liaison, to be met in hotel lobby upon check-in. Isabelle Dubois. Isabelle Dubois. The name hung in the air between us, an invisible, venomous vapor. It wasn't just a name. It was a story, a history, a thorn I thought had been plucked out long ago. Isabelle was Liam's work wife, the one he'd mentioned a little too often a couple of years back. She was the brilliant, beautiful French transfer from the Lion office, the one who shared his passion for obscure indie films, the one who just got his dry sense of humor. I remembered the late nights at the office, the inside jokes I wasn't privy to, the way his face would light up when he talked about a project they were collaborating on. I had voiced my unease back then, a gentle inquiry wrapped in a joke, and he had dismissed it so thoroughly, so condescendingly, that I'd felt ashamed for even thinking it. "Chloe, she's just a colleague," he'd said, with that same patient smile he'd used on me tonight. "You can't be this insecure. I chose you." I had believed him. I had buried the insecurity, labeled it as my own baggage, and trusted the man I loved. Now, seeing her name, printed in stark black and white on a reservation for a romantic getaway package, felt like a physical blow. The air rushed out of my lungs. He was going to Paris, the city of our dreams, on a trip that included champagne and rose petals, to be met by her. It wasn't a work trip. It was a rendezvous. "Isabelle Dubois," I said, my voice eerily calm, the calmness before a storm. I pushed the reservation slip across the table with one finger, tapping it lightly. "She's your conference liaison?" Liam snatched the paper up, his eyes wide with a panicked, cornered look. He glanced at it, then shoved it messily into his pocket. "It's a big company, Chloe. Yes, she works there. She's coordinating the event. It's her job." Her job to coordinate a romantic getaway package for one? I pressed, leaning in. The restaurant, the other diners, the candlelight, it all melted away. There was only his face, his lies, and the chasm that had just opened up between us. Rose petal turn-down service, Liam? Is that standard for corporate travel now? I didn't book that, he hissed, his eyes darting around the restaurant, checking if anyone was listening. That must be a mistake from the hotel, a standard upgrade or something. You're making a huge deal out of nothing. Am I? The dam of my composure was cracking. Am I making a big deal out of the fact that you planned a trip to Ore City with our money to meet up with the one woman you swore I had nothing to worry about? You couldn't even be bothered to book a room with 2 twin beds. You booked a honeymoon suite for your business trip. Stop it, he seethed, his voice low and threatening. You're being hysterical. You're ruining our anniversary. I'm ruining it? My laugh was brittle, sharp. It was the sound of something breaking. You vaporized our anniversary the moment you booked that ticket, the moment you decided our shared dream was just a convenient backdrop for your little reunion. I stood up so abruptly, my chair scraped loudly against the floor. The couple at the next table looked over, startled. I didn't care. I threw my napkin onto my barely touched plate of food. You know what, Liam? You're right. This is a huge career opportunity for you, a masterclass in deception and betrayal. You should be very proud. Tears were finally streaming down my face, hot and angry. I fumbled in my purse for my wallet, pulling out a handful of cash and throwing it on the table. For my half, I wouldn't want you to be out of pocket. I turned and walked away, not looking back. I could feel his gaze on me, hot and furious, but I didn't falter. I pushed through the heavy restaurant door and stumbled out into the cool night air, gasping as if I'd been holding my breath for the last 5 years. The city lights blurred through my tears. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was him. I declined the call. It buzzed again. A text message. Liam, you are being completely unreasonable. I am coming home. We will talk about this. I shoved the phone into my pocket and started walking, my heels clicking a frantic, desperate rhythm on the pavement. Home, our home. The home with the corkboard full of pictures of Paris. The home with the pickle jar, now half empty and utterly meaningless. I couldn't go there. I couldn't face him, couldn't listen to more lies, more gaslighting. My feet carried me without direction, past laughing groups of people, past storefronts glowing in the dark. My mind was a maelstrom of betrayal and fury. And then a single, cold, clear thought cut through the chaos. He had handed me his plan, every detail, the flight number, the hotel, the dates. He had underestimated me. He thought I would cry, yell, and then eventually forgive. He thought I was the quiet, steady girlfriend who would just absorb the blow. He had no idea who he had just unleashed. I stopped under a streetlight, pulling my phone back out. My fingers flew across the screen, my movements sharp and decisive. I wasn't just going to let him go. I wasn't just going to let him have our dream with her. I opened my banking app, my heart pounding a war drum in my ears. I looked at the balance in our Paris fund. Then I opened a web browser. I typed in the airline's website, a fierce, predatory smile spreading across my face. He wanted Paris? Fine. He was going to get it. But the trip he had planned was about to hit some serious, unexpected turbulence. My apartment felt alien when I finally let myself in hours later. It was nearly 2 a.m., and the silence was suffocating. Liam's coat was slung over a chair. His shoes were by the door. Signs of a life we no longer shared. The Paris corkboard in the kitchen mocked me, a colorful collage of broken promises. With a surge of cold fury, I ripped it from the wall, the cork tearing, the pins scattering like tiny metallic tears across the linoleum floor. I didn't care. That life, the one where I patiently saved for a dream with a man who was building a separate one behind my back, was over. I spent the next 2 days in a blur of methodical rage. Liam's texts and calls became a constant, desperate barrage. First, they were angry and demanding. Then they softened, becoming pleading and apologetic, full of phrases like, huge misunderstanding and let me explain. I ignored every single one. I put his message thread on mute and let him scream into the void. My focus was singular, absolute. The first thing I did was call the airline. Using the booking reference he'd so stupidly given me, I navigated the automated system. To make a change to an existing booking, please press 2. The woman on the other end was polite and efficient. Yes, ma'am, I can help you with that. Miller, you said. Flight 72 to Charles de Gaulle on October 12th. And what change would you like to make? I'd like to change the return date, I said, my voice smooth as glass. Could you please tell me what the earliest available return flight is on October 13th? There was a pause and the clacking of a keyboard. The 13th? Ma'am, that would be for the very next day. We have a flight departing Paris at 10 a.m., arriving at JFK at 12:30 p.m. local time. Perfect, I said, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. Let's book that. Yes, I'm aware of the change fee. Please charge it to the card on file. His romantic week in Paris had just been condensed into a grueling 24-hour turnaround. He would land, probably check into his romantic hotel, meet Isabel, and then have to turn right back around and head to the airport. The thought of his confusion and fury was a small, bitter balm on my shredded heart. Step 2 was the hotel, Hôtel d'Aubusson. I found their direct number and dialed, channeling my most charming, apologetic voice. Bonjour, I began, using the French Liam and I used to practice. My fiancé, Liam Miller, made a reservation. Ah, oui. I'm so sorry to bother you, but there has been a dreadful mix-up with his corporate travel agent. I spun a tale about a last-minute change of plans, an urgent conference being moved to a different city. He's so terribly embarrassed, but the new conference is in Berlin. Is there any chance we could transfer the booking, perhaps to a sister hotel? The concierge was wonderfully helpful, full of sympathetic noises. Of course, they had a partnership with a lovely hotel in Berlin, the Grand Hyatt at Potsdamer Platz. Was that suitable? It was more than suitable. It was perfect. I confirmed the change, thanking him profusely. The rose petals and champagne would now be waiting for Liam in a city he had no reason to be in, hundreds of miles away from Isabel. The final piece of my revenge puzzle was our Paris fund. I marched into our bank the next morning and stood before a teller. I'd like to close a joint savings account, I announced, sliding over the account details. I transferred every single cent, every spare dollar, every saved fiver, 3 years of our shared hope, into my own personal account, the account that Liam had no access to. I then used a significant portion of it to book my own ticket. Not to Paris, not to Berlin. I booked a one-way flight to see my sister in California, leaving on October 11th, the day before Liam was scheduled to depart. By the time I was done, I felt hollowed out, but strangely calm. I packed my most important belongings, photo albums, my grandmother's jewelry, clothes. I left his things untouched. I left the torn corkboard on the kitchen floor. On the empty space on the wall where it used to hang, I tacked up a single piece of paper, the confirmation for his new flight home, arriving the very next day. Beside it, I tacked up the new hotel reservation in Berlin, and underneath both, I left a single Polaroid of us from our first anniversary, smiling and happy. On the back, I wrote just 7 words. Enjoy your conference. Hope she was worth it. The night before my flight, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. It wasn't Liam. It was his mother, Brenda. Her voice was frantic. Chloe, thank God. Liam is going out of his mind. He came by my house. He looks a wreck. He says you won't answer his calls, that you've had some awful fight. What on earth is going on, dear? I took a deep breath. Brenda had always been kind to me. She didn't deserve to be in the middle of this, but Liam had left me no choice. There was no fight, Brenda, I said, my voice steady. There was a discovery. Ask Liam to show you his anniversary present to me. Ask him about Isabelle Dubois. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line and then a heavy sigh. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its frantic edge, replaced by a deep, weary sadness. Oh dear, not again. Not again? The words echoed in my ear, chilling me to the bone. What do you mean, not again? I sank onto my packed suitcase, the carefully constructed walls of my anger suddenly feeling fragile. Brenda sighed, a sound heavy with years of resignation. "Chloe, I love my son, but I'm not blind. Isabel, she wasn't the first. There was a girl in college, Allison. He told her they were exclusive, but he was seeing someone else the whole time. He has this need for admiration, for the thrill of the new. He builds these perfect little worlds, but he can't seem to be content in them. He always needs a side story, another admirer waiting in the wings. I always hoped you would be the one to finally make him feel enough, that he wouldn't need that anymore." Her confession was a punch to the gut. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a pattern, a fundamental flaw in the man I thought I knew. I hadn't just been lied to, I had been cast in a role, the steady girlfriend, a part he'd apparently typecast before. The anger returned, but this time it was different. Colder, sharper. It wasn't the hot rage of a broken heart, but the icy resolve of a woman who had been played for a fool one time too many. "Thank you for telling me, Brenda," I said, my voice surprisingly firm. "You've given me more clarity than you can imagine. I have to go now." I ended the call before she could reply, my path forward now brutally, unequivocally clear. The next 10 days in California were a sun-drenched balm on my soul. My sister Maya didn't pry. She just wrapped me in a hug, handed me a glass of wine, and let me exist. We hiked in the hills, watched the sunset over the Pacific, and talked about everything and nothing. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look at social media. For the first time in 5 years, my world wasn't orbiting Liam. It was slowly, tentatively, beginning to spin on its own axis. On what would have been the 4th day of his Paris trip, I finally turned my phone on. The sheer volume of notifications made it lag. Dozens of missed calls from Liam, a string of increasingly unhinged text messages. They started with confusion from the JFK check-in desk about his return flight. Then came the fury when he landed in Paris and realized he had less than a day. Then, the pure, apoplectic rage when he'd called the hotel from the taxi, only to be told his reservation was in Berlin. The final messages sent in the middle of the night from a lonely airport hotel room he must have frantically booked near Charles de Gaulle were a pathetic mix of pleading and threats. "Liam, Chloe, this is insane. You sabotaged my career. Isabel thinks I'm a complete flake." "Liam, what am I supposed to tell my boss? You've ruined everything." "Liam, please just call me. I know what I did was wrong. I was stupid. I miss you. I love you." "Liam, fine. You want to be this way? You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Half of that Paris fund is mine." I read the last message and laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Let him try. I had already transferred the money and closed the account. He could take me to court. I'd relish the discovery phase. The real resolution, however, came from an unexpected source. A week later, I received an email with the subject line, "An apology." It was from Isabelle Dubois. My finger hovered over the delete button, but morbid curiosity won. "Chloe," it began, "I don't expect you to read this, much less reply. I found your email through the company directory. What I do expect is that you know the truth. Liam told me you two had broken up weeks ago. He said it was amicable and that you were moving out. He painted a picture of himself as the heartbroken but resilient single guy. He booked the hotel, invited me to dinner, and promised me a romantic week, showing me his Paris. I fell for it. When he never showed up at the hotel, I was confused and hurt. I called his office, and eventually, a colleague who is friends with his mother told me the real story. I am mortified, and I am so sorry for my part in your pain. He is a coward and a masterful liar. For what it's worth, I have reported his behavior to HR. Faking a business trip for a romantic rendezvous is not exactly company policy. I don't know what will happen, but I couldn't live with you not knowing the whole truth. I hope you find peace. Sincerely, Isabel. Reading her words, I felt the last vestiges of my anger drain away, replaced by a profound, cleansing pity. Pity for her, for me, and even for Liam, a man so hollow he had to build his life out of lies. His perfect little world had imploded, and he'd done it all to himself. I typed a short reply. "Thank you. I wish you the same." I never went back to the apartment. I arranged for my sister to fly out and pack up the rest of my things with movers. Liam, I heard through Brenda, was suspended from work pending an HR investigation and was staying on his friend's couch. He tried to serve me with legal papers, but since I technically had no fixed address, they were returned to sender. Months later, sitting on my own balcony in a small but sunny California apartment I'd rented for myself, I looked at my bank account. The Paris fund was still there, minus the cost of a plane ticket and a security deposit. It wasn't a symbol of a broken promise anymore. It was a beginning, my beginning. I pulled out my laptop and started searching for flights. Not to Paris, not anymore. Maybe Lisbon or Rome or somewhere I'd never even dreamed of. This time, there would only be one passenger on the ticket. And for the first time in a very long time, that felt absolutely perfect.